Before we dive into the blood-soaked madness of this 88 film slasher classic collection review, a quick heads up for listeners and viewers alike. These episodes come straight from the podcast Under the Stairs archives, recorded before the launch of the YouTube channel and long before video podcasts became part of the show. These reviews were originally crafted purely for audio. So if the production feels a little rougher around the edges or a little more stripped back than current episodes, that's because you're hearing the show in its earlier form, raw, passionate, and let's be honest, a little waffly at times. Whether you're revisiting these reviews or discovering them for the first time, please sit back and relax and enjoy this trip through the golden age of mass killers, inventive gore, and VH era nightmares. This podcast is not safe for work and will feature movie spoilers. It will feature scenes described of a graphic nature. It will contain language which most listeners may find offensive. Welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. Hi everyone and welcome to the podcast Under the Stairs. This is your Sunday 88 Films Slasher Classic series of reviews. I'm your host Duncan. Welcome to the show. Up on this episode we turn our attention to disc number 35 in the Slasher Classic collection. This is Alice, Sweet Alice. Now this movie here, you can still get it, it's still available. It says this one's region free, which means when 88 Films released it, that's region unlocked. However, I don't entirely know the rights issues in the States. The reason I say that is I have also got the Arrow Video US release of this, and that came out after 88 Films put out their version, so I'm not entirely sure where the rights lie, who's in control of things. So while I say it's region unlocked, I don't actually know if you can buy this one in America or it's just a case of it was released in the UK region unlocked. So just stressing that up front before I get into anything else. So yeah, that's what we'll be covering on this episode. Podcast Under the Stairs has been a busy beaver this week, dropping a little Bazoween right at the start of the week. We then jumped into doing a bit of fun Thursday content, looking at the American Horror Project box sets. Myself and Derek are going to be doing a run through all 6 movies over the 2 box sets, basically on the run up to Christmas. So we covered Malatesta's Carnival of Blood to begin with. Yesterday you got movies 8 through 16 on my 31 of Halloween watch list. A couple of 5-star movies in that run between 8 and 16, so check it out if you want to hear me gush over movies that I loved and just generally be bummed. I think overall the quality of movies between 8 to 16, the ratio would be slightly low in terms of quality, but there was these couple of amazing standout movies within them. On the Teapots Collective, dropping today, you'll get the final episode in our look at British folk horror through Chronicle podcast. So season 3 finally comes to a wrap. We're looking at a dark song. And then over the next week and a half, you'll be getting Where to Begin with Jallo and the next instalment of Opera Omnia before closing out at the end of the month with Down the Nasty, finally bringing us back in line with a time schedule of 1 a month. Very much looking forward to that for sure. So that's you all caught up here. Let's get into this, shall we? I'm going to take a very short break. You're going to hear promos for shows that I love. You're going to hear the trailer for Alice, Sweet Alice. When I return, I'm discussing that movie right after this.
As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to be a gangster. And while Witch didn't make it to the top of the world, he did make the Gangs of Hollywood podcast. So join the gang and enjoy a movie review podcast about movie gangs, gangsters, mobsters, and the mayhem they cause. You can find GOH Podcast on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram, at GOHPod, at www.gohpod.com, as well as your favorite podcast listening app. And remember, say hello to your little friend, for me.
Brooke Shields in Holy Terror. Alice was too old to play with dolls and too young to make love. Brooke Shields, as you've never seen her before. She was too beautiful to play with boys and too young to play with men. So Alice began to play with death.
She's made repeated requests that the kid see a psychiatrist.
She has a knack of making things look like accidents.
It's dead! It's dead! They tried to kill me!
No more dolls, no more toys. Alice only plays with bodies. It's too late to save her. A story of unnatural love and unnatural death. Brooke Shields in Holy Terror. It's too late for prayers.
And welcome back. So you've just heard the trailer for Alice, Sweet Alice. This is disc number 35 in the old 88 Films slasher classic collection. This movie from 1976. This is what they call a proto-slasher, in that it has some of the trappings of what would become the future Flasher? The future Flasher. That's a porno that I need to watch. The future slasher series or genre, which wasn't around in 76. We're still kind of knee deep in weird American horror movies and gialli, which are the kind of mismatch, the Brundlefly experiment that comes out to make the slasher genre. Some of the deets on the 88 Films website, it says when 10-year-old Karen, played by Brooke Shields in her first screen appearance, is killed in church on the occasion of her first communion, her seemingly innocent older sister Alice, played by Paula Shepherd, becomes the prime suspect. Matters become complicated as more of Alice's family members are attacked along with the residents of her apartment building. Can a 12-year-old girl be capable of such mayhem, or is something else with a vicious plan destroying her family? The movie is starring Linda Miller, Paula Shepherd, Mildred Clinton, Tom Signori, and introducing Brooke Shields. It's directed by Alfred Soule. The features, like I say, region unlocked for this one, but I still don't know the ins and outs, so you guys are better versed out there on that, you'll know. It comes in a new 2018 2K scan and restoration from the Positive Elements, a restored LPCM original mono audio, optional English subtitles, audio commentary by the director Alfred Soule and editor Edward Salia, original trailer, a communion TV spot, posters and home video artwork gallery, a restoration comparison and a reversible sleeve. The technical specs is region unlocked. Picture format HD 1080p 185.1. The audio format is LPCM dual mono. Language is English. Certification 18. And the runtime is about 1 hour and 47 minutes all in. This is a movie I'm fairly versed in, actually. I've seen this one quite a few times. To be honest, I haven't seen it in Blu-ray. So this is the first time sitting down and watching the Blu-ray. That's right, I haven't even cracked the seal on my Arrow one yet. And to be honest, now that I've seen the movie, I'll probably want to wait till next year before I do that, unless it pops up on one of those Arrow video assortment episodes we do. And if it does, we'll tackle that then. So this is one that I'm fairly familiar with. The reason I'm fairly familiar with it, and I have never checked Troy Holworth's third book on giallos to see if this is one of the non-Italian giallos that are considered giallos or should be considered giallos, but The reason I'm saying giallo quite a lot is this one has the feel of a giallo. This is American directors, filmmakers or whatever, studios doing their turn on what was a hugely popular subgenre at this point. And that comes right from not only the setup, the idea of some kind of childhood trauma having an impact somewhere down the line with our killer. The idea of, you know, an outfit, although this is moving more into slasher territory in terms of the mask and stuff, you don't necessarily get much of that back in the giallo stuff, but they're already starting to Americanize it here. There's a little bit of Don't Look Now, specifically on the idea of the raincoat, and I know other movies have used raincoat killers, but there is a central reveal in this movie which is not dissimilar at all to the reveal in Don't Look Now. This kind of plays out at times a bit like a fever dream, so there's those elements as well. And even the score to this movie almost has a kind of bird with a crystal plumage, sort of very like la la la, sort of singing in the background. It's a very giallo-esque soundtrack. Cinematography also feels that way. You know, it has these kind of very ostentatious sort of setups in the camera and the movement. So it kind of feels that way, although this is very much not a jet-setting, you know, glamorous movie by any stretch of the imagination. In a lot of respects, this is quite an ugly movie. And even the restoration kind of shows how ugly in parts this movie actually is. So on top of that, what you also have is you have some really great performances here. Yes, it's a bit melodramatic. It's a bit TV movie-esque of the era. You know, a lot of, oh my God, you know, like hands on the heads, overacting performances. But Paula Shepherd as Alice is brilliant in this. She has this kind of almost vacant-esque sort of stare in her eyes. Reminds me of a kind of less camera-friendly Linda Blair from The Exorcist. She just has this look about her. You can almost paint anything in her face. It's insinuated that a lot of nasty things have happened to her, whether that be that she is either incredibly promiscuous, and which I think is a weird stance for this movie to take, or the fact that maybe she's actually been abused in the past, and that because of the climate, and I may be looking too much into this through 2020 eyes, but because of the climate, maybe that's just overlooked because of the nature of the church. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to kind of delve into. Essentially what you have here is Alice's sister Karen, who's the do-good at church, about to get communion, is the apple of the father's eye and all the rest, gets all the attention from the mother and the rest of the family. We're saying single mother, is murdered in the church, and all the setup of the raincoat and the mask that the killer wears would lead you to believe that maybe Alice is behind it. And then more people start dying. I'm not giving away the ending to this movie. I do recommend you go and check this one out. As of the kind of slasher classics that we've had thus far, this one, like I say, proto-slasher, I wouldn't necessarily call it a full-out slasher. I think we're being a bit too ambitious if we're doing that. But this is one of the high watermarks of the collection thus far. This is a really, really, really good movie. It's a bit long, but I think for the most part, it doesn't feel like it labours any points or languages in the middle. It feels fairly concise in getting to all the different setups. There's just a lot of story here, and there's a lot about the church, and you kind of need to understand all that in order for the reveal of the killer to kind of make sense. And this is one of the kind of few kind of proto-slashers, or on the flip side, one of the kind of Americanized adaptations of giallo, where the killer's motivations actually kind of make sense, and the killer reveal makes sense, and all the pieces fit in well. You know, if you were doing your Columbo, well, there's just one more question, sir. You know what I mean? If you worked it all back, the whole thing makes sense. And there's clues early on in the movie as to even the size of the killer, that it might not necessarily be who the police and everyone else suspects it is. It's not over the top violent, but there is some viciousness in here. There's a particularly grisly scene with a knife and a set of stairs, and a lady's legs getting stabbed, and then her foot gets stabbed, and it's a really good effect, and it holds up really well, even in the high definition restoration, so that works really well. There's later on scenes, there's a kind of brick to the head that looks a bit shit, if I'm honest, a bit Hammer-esque, so, you know, it's not great. But even then, though, I can forgo that for the most part. The end of the movie is absolutely bonkers in a way that I kind of adore. It works really well with the movie, and it all fits into place kind of excellently. But this is a movie that is playing with lots of different ideas. I mentioned giallos in particular. There's certainly that there. This came out, the same year as Black Christmas, I think. They're both 76. So this is the beginning of the flexing of what would become the slasher genre, both those movies being considered kind of proto-slashers. So, you know, we're not that far away from John Carpenter releasing Halloween. So the seeds are there for what would become the slasher genre. It's playing with ideas that don't look now, specifically to do with, like I say, with raincoats. In the case of this one, not a red raincoat, a bright yellow raincoat. I love the idea of the mask. The mask is something that really works well with it, and, you know, has been used ad nauseum in movies kind of since. So I really like that idea in here. There's also elements as well about the apartment building being as it is, you know, not necessarily specific images of Rosemary's Baby, but I imagine off the back of Polanski's apartment trilogy, that's in the back of people's heads as a great, you know, setting to do things. There is a creepy landlord who is, I mean, we might as well just say a fucking borderline paedophile, who tries to, at least on one occasion, and hints at has happened before, try to molest Alice, which I think is pretty horrible. He's a disgusting kind of rotund character who he looks like Uncle Fester with a beard, is the way that I would describe it. Wears the same disgusting sweatpants, eats his cat food as he's feeding it, just like a fucking reprehensible sort of character, but listens to a combination of old time music and a little bit of, once again, the kind of church music as well, which makes you think that, you know, it's accepted because he's a follower of the church. So once again, I might be putting my perspective into the movie, I don't know, but I think it's an interesting little look at it anyway. Yeah, overall, Alice Sweet Alice is a great movie. This is one of the ones in the collection where I'm like, I am happy to own this movie. Sadly, I also own the Arrow one, so I now have 2 copies of this movie. And we'll see how they compare up. I imagine the special features are a bit better on the Arrow ones, they tend to be, because they've got more to play with over there. But the restoration looks beautiful, sound design is great, and it's a great movie. It really, really is. If you've not watched Alice Sweet Alice before, go in and check it out. This one is one of those hybrids that spans for those that like the giallo reviews, maybe not necessarily the slasher ones. This is one for you. For those that like the slasher movies and not maybe necessarily the giallo ones, this is a movie for you. It straddles the two genres really fucking well, in a way where movies like Torso, which came a couple of years before, are there's a definite break in the middle of this movie between what is a giallo and what is a slasher. This one kind of deftly mixes the two in a satisfying way. So yeah, it's definitely one to check out for sure. If you've never seen it before, if you've not seen it in a while, revisit. This is the season to revisit movies, and it's a good one to revisit for sure. My grade for Alice Sweet Alice is a stomping 4 out of 5. I think it's a great movie. I really like it, and like I say, next year I will sit down and check out that Arrow restoration, take pointers, and maybe one day feedback in as to what is the better copy. Although 88 Films have the leading mark here in that theirs is region free and the Arrow one will only play on US players. So there we go. So yeah, 4 out of 5 for Alice Sweet Alice. I'm going to take my final break. When I come back, I'm closing the show out right after this. And you've been listening to the podcast Under the Stairs. Ladies and gents, this has been your Sunday 88 Films Slasher Classic series of reviews. We're looking at disc number 35, Alice Sweet Alice. In 3 weeks' time, we are moving on to disc number 36. This is Offerings, a movie that I've never heard of nor seen before. Let's see what it says on the website. If the slasher film formula teaches us anything, it's not to bully a young child, because chances are they'll grow up to slice, stab and slaughter those who wronged them. And from Jason Voorhees to Prom Night and the late 80s shocker Offerings, there is one thing for sure. The body count is going to build and build as an adult Avenger takes on a slasher rampage of their own. Released in 1989, the blood-splashed classic Offerings serves up a small-town revenge rampage that is among the genre's most madcap and mesmerising. A perfect example of videotape-era terror with a knife-wielding Avenger that is guaranteed to provoke a spine-tingling reaction. This darkly comedic and proudly plasma-packed example of teen tormenting excellence has finally arrived back onto UK shelves in a horrible HD, courtesy of the Controversy Quarters, that was a difficult one there, at 88 Films. Special features is a brand new 2K restoration from the original 16mm negative, an uncompressed dual mono audio commentary by the slasher-loving podcast The Hysteria Continues, the trailer, optional English subtitles and reversible sleeve with alternate artwork. The technical specs are this is region locked to region B, the picture format is HD 1781, audio format is LPCM stereo, language is English, subtitles English, certification 18 and the runtime just over an hour and a half. So yeah, 3 weeks time, Offerings from 1989. There's a multitude of ways you can check out the show. Wherever you're listening to right now, hit subscribe. That way you get access to the entire podcast Under the Stairs back catalogue, and any future episodes we drop without having to worry about it. They just download automatically. While you're also subscribing to things, subscribe to Teapots Collective and you get the additional 4 shows that I record over there every month directly in an additional feed for free. It couldn't be any easier to do. It's the best way to support me is to subscribe to both those feeds. You can check out our website, it's teapotscast.com, or buy merch by going to teapotscast.bigcartel.com. You can visit us on Facebook, facebook.com/groups/teapotscast. The Facebook page for the Teapots Collective is facebook.com/teapotscast. You can reach out and touch myself and the Baz on the twin prongs of social media sexiness. That's a little bit of the Instagram and the Twitter by @teapotscast. Couldn't be any easier to follow us on all those mediums. Please do it. And yeah, if you're listening to podcasts Under the Stairs, you do a little screen grab and tag us in your post on Instagram, tag us on Twitter, tag us on Facebook. You know, wherever you're listening to us, promote us about the place. Let us know you're promoting us about the place. It really does our heart good to see people out there enjoying the content that we release. The podcast Under the Stairs will return for you tomorrow with a little bit of Bazoween action for 2020. This is a penultimate episode. We're looking at that Ted Bundy film with a name that I always get in the wrong order. Extremely Shocking, Wickedly Vile and Evil, or something along those lines. But yeah, we're doing that movie tomorrow. That episode was a ton of fun to record. You're going to have a ball with it for sure. And until then, wherever you are, where the time zone is and whatever you're up to in this big bad world of ours, please take care of yourselves out there. This is Duncan McLeish broadcasting live from Under the Stairs, and I am signing off.